So the final question I was kind of asking myself about the nature of privacy is, why is it actually important? And this is sort of the most interesting area of the debate about it, because there are some theorists that argue that privacy isn't important. Some say it's, there's the feminist critique of privacy, which says that it's something that upholds kind of oppression of women. And there's also the economic critique of privacy, which is that privacy is not good for business. But the defense of privacy that I like the best was first appeared in an article in 1975 by a guy named Rachels. And in that, he argued that we all have these sort of multiple selves, that we're all, as individuals, we have some coherence, but we also have different facets of our identities as people that come up in different social contexts. So we have a sort of party self, and we have a work self, we have a family self, and an intimate self, and all these different, and we don't really feel free unless we have the liberty to kind of explore all of these different facets of our identities without feeling beholden to other facets of our identities. So it's really important that we can feel that we can cut loose on a Friday night with our friends, and it's a bit of an invasion of our privacy if the photos of that party are then uploaded so that someone in our workplace sees what our Friday night behavior is like. So it's sort of this compartmentalization argument, which I think is a really good sort of starting point for thinking about why privacy actually is important to our identities in this society. But the next step, as I was going through this theme, was to just think about privacy and its relationship with artist practice, particularly at this time when we are experiencing this shift in the boundary between what's visible to the outside world and what we keep to ourselves. And I guess there's kind of two central strategies which come across through many of the works in the show, but they're not all of them. And this could loosely be termed appropriation and disclosure. And I'm going to talk about a couple of examples of each before I turn it over. I guess I should say that those groupings are meant to be just loose ways of thinking about artists' approaches to privacy, but one of the key things that I really found when I was curating this show is that privacy appears as a theme in artists' work in many different ways, and it's difficult to kind of encapsulate it in a single statement. The first artist I wanted to talk about is Kota Izawa, and this is a piece that I would say uses appropriation of private information as a strategy. In this work, the artist has taken the infamous Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee sex tape, which was released on the internet in 1998, causing what reporters at the time called a cyber traffic jam. And the tape was kind of interesting in a way because people had there was this whole discussion about like whether they meant it to be released from the very beginning, whether it was intended to become a part of their public image from the very start, or whether it was truly something private that had been disclosed to the public. I think it was probably the former. But Kota, who has watched the tape, I have not watched the original. Kota tells me that there are parts in the tape where it seems apparent that one of them is aware that the tape is going to be seen by the public one day. But Kota's work is, he considers himself a painter, and a lot of his work is in kind of, is in lightbox form, although this piece and many of his others are in video form. And what he's done is recreated scenes from the video. But in doing so, he's focused in on scenes that really show Pamela and Tommy Lee grappling with their use of the camera to express themselves and present themselves. And it's kind of funny because here are two people that are probably on camera every day of their waking life. But when you put a video camera in their hands, what do? They play with the zoom function, and they hold a piece of orange gel in front of the lens and pretend that the world has turned orange, which is one of the scenes that Kota has chosen to focus on in their work. So that's really looking at the aesthetic, I think, of disclosure. Another artist uses appropriation of private information in a different way, or to much different effect. This is a piece by Trevor Pagling, who, the piece is called oh gosh, it's got such a long title, I'm not sure I can remember. It's on the wall over there. But what he's done is simply taken passport images or reproductions of the passports used by CIA agents who, in 2003, abducted a Muslim cleric from Italian soil and transported him illegally to Egypt for questioning. And they all stayed in like a $30,000 a night hotel. The hotel bill itself was like, should have been a public scandal. But what do you do when you stay in a hotel in Europe? You have to give them your passport and they make a photocopy of it. So when this kidnapping sort of came to light, these passports actually entered into the public record and are presented here as Trevor's work. And I think what's really interesting about them is that they're fake documents, but they do include a real image. So you're kind of getting this glimpse of the human face behind a government action. It's kind of humanizing this abstract action by government power, which I think is what's sort of seductive about it. This is a still image from a work by Sophie Cal, which is a 30-minute video that's playing around the corner, and I highly recommend seeing it. The piece is interesting because it begins with an attempt to appropriate. In 1988, Sophie Cal was invited to do a project by a bank in the US, and the private detective that worked for the bank gave her a set of images that had been taken from the bank's security cameras. So she was then asked to try and make a work from these photographs. And for the next 15 years, Sophie Cal tried to make a work out of this set of photographs, I think ultimately collecting something like 2,000 or 3,000 images from the bank and videotapes and all of this source material. But she never really felt, although many of these works have now been bought by collectors, she says in the tape that she feels that they didn't really convey what she was trying to convey, and that ultimately the works are failures. So the video is actually a disclosure of her own process as an artist and the doubts that she feels as she goes about as she goes through her artist practice. So it starts with a disclosure, or starts with an appropriation, and kind of mutates into a disclosure. Disclosure is used as a strategy in a work that's showing in the Black Room, which may not be, you may have missed on your first tour around the exhibition. This is a piece by Jill Magid called Checkpoint, Fashion for Israeli Security Checkpoints. And in this work, Sharif has created a line of haute couture, men's fashion, which reveals various parts of the male body to wondrous effect. And at the end of the video, I guess I have to give it away, he reveals the inspiration behind the work, which I guess is given away by the title. He shows images from news sources that show Palestinian men at security checkpoints raising their clothing to reveal parts of their body. So the clothing is, although it appears to be this disclosure that's sort of meant to be sexy and, cutting edge, it's actually serves a functional purpose as well, which is to get you through a security checkpoint without having to remove your fancy clothes. So here, the active disclosure of the body becomes a kind of tool for political critique. It's almost as if Sharif is saying, these are the lengths to which one must go to avoid the suspicion in this political climate. And I wanted to conclude, I'm not going to go through all of the works in the show, but I wanted to conclude by talking about this piece by Mohammed Kamra, which involves an element of disclosure, but also really directly addresses privacy as its subject matter as well. Mohammed Kamra is a young photographer based in Bamako, Mali, and when he was 18 years old, a French photographer gave him a camera. And Mohammed was worried that if he took photographs in the street, the camera would be stolen. So he started taking photographs inside his home and inside the homes of his friends and family. And he became quite successful. He has an amazing sort of eye or sense of image making, and actually caught the attention of a gallerist in Paris. In the piece that's showing in the exhibition, Mohammed's taken a video camera and filmed all of the curtains that hang in the doorways of his friends and family's homes in Bamako. And so the piece is sort of a reflection on the line between public and private. In the really hot climate that we find in Bamako, the thin membrane of the curtain is maybe all that separates the public and private sphere, but it's enough to allow him to kind of practice his art without fear of hindrance from people in the street, which I think is a really nice reflection of the value of privacy, which I thought would be a good place to stop.